Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Compassionate Friends webinar series. Tonight we have a very special guest, Mitch Carmody, who is doing his webinar on proactive grieving. Mitch Carmody is Kelly's dad, and he's the author of Letters to My Son. Mitch presents workshops and speaks on grief and loss for grievers and professionals around the country. He's a dear friend of the Compassionate Friends, and personally a dear friend of mine. And Mitch, welcome tonight. We are so honored to have you here, and you and I have done a lot of work together on something that we call proactive grieving, and so I'm so happy that we can share this with all of our TCF family tonight. So welcome to our webinar, and please tell us a little bit about how we can walk through the journey of grief effectively and find healing by using proactive grieving.
Well, thank you, Alan, very much, and thank you, all you compassionate friends that are out there listening. I'm very honored to be able to do this webinar for the compassionate friends and for those grievers that are hurting on their journey. My journey started a long time ago with many losses in my life, culminating with the loss of my son, which changed my life forever. And changing my life forever has brought me into this world of helping the bereaved. And proactive grieving is just what I call how we go through this journey. It's a long journey of discovery and finding out, some people call it the new normal. But it's just discovering who we are and how we process our grief and where do we go from here after a loss of a family member, especially that of a child. And so I call it proactive grieving, turning loss to legacy. As you can see maybe from the pictures on your screen, when we begin our journey, we are thrust into shock. As you see the picture on the left, these are drawings that I've done that help depict the journey of all of us who go through this. And we can turn from loss, from the initial shock and devastation that we experience, and hopefully that we can reach a peaceful stage in our life where we can learn to live with the loss, and we can do that by turning the loss to legacy. We live the loss. We are the CEO of our grief. And there's a lot of literature and a lot of people telling us in society, telling us how to grieve. But it's a very singular journey. It's a very unique journey to each one of us. All the circumstances surrounding our journey makes it different for everyone. And so that's why I wanted to illustrate with this webinar ways that you can find to turn that loss to legacy, and even identifying where you are in your grief journey you may not know. So what is proactive grieving? That's embracing your grief. It's taking ownership, finding out more about it. It's not going through it. It's going through it, not around it. It's living the loss, not postponing its grief. We can over-medicate. We can, with medications, prescription or non-prescription, to try to get through the pain and try to numb ourselves of this reality that has overtaken our lives. And that's a normal process at the beginning. The shock puts us into a numb state where, that we can try to handle the very difficult journey. So there's many ways in proactive grieving that we can learn to identify where we're at, take a barometer of who we are and how we react to our loss. Through the travels, I have been traveling this country, and Alan Peterson and I have done many days with Mitch and Alan, where we have done a whole 8-hour day with many bereaved across the country, compassionate friends, and also with many other groups across the country to not only help the bereaved, but to help those caregivers and those that help the bereaved understand the length and the breadth of the journey that we go through. Because in times past, if anybody's experienced loss in their life through the years, we notice that a lot of times we're kind of put into a situation where we do what we learned as we grew up, what our parents did, what our friends did, what our grandparents did. There's no Grief 101 in high school or in college, so we kind of emulate what our parents did, and we mirror how they reacted to their loss. And I'm seeing a shift. In speaking to hundreds of bereaved chapters of CCF members around the country and other groups, I see a real shift changing. And it's exciting to see that people are starting to take control of their own journey. This paradigm shift is a whole new perspective on loss and recovery. And I see it in young people. There's an inordinate amount of suicides across this country in rural America and in urban America and in the armed services. And I see people talking, now they're going out, they're putting R.I.P. Trent, R.I.P. Elisa. They're on their car windows. The kids are having candle lightings at the football field. They're putting butterflies on the fences surrounding the football field. They're expressing their loss. They're honoring their loved one's life, their friend's life, and grieving, openly grieving, and not feeling shame for the grief. Because a lot of times we tend to tuck it away and put it away and not speak it. And it's so important to let it out and talk it out. And that's what I'm seeing happening now. And I'm so excited that the Compassionate Friends is on the forefront of allowing people and educating people that they have the power to help themselves. But the power to help themselves is best found through the help of others. You know, when we help others, we are helped. And so other people helping us helps them, it helps us. It's really a win-win situation. And from others, we can learn many tools that help us on that journey. Grief, to me, it's a lifelong journey. I say it can be, but it is a lifelong journey. It's measured in years and not months. But it's what we do with those years that can turn our loss to legacy. Sometimes we can be stuck in a certain part of our grief and afraid through fear or even logistical matters that postpone our processing our grief. So it can take a long, long time to understand the nuances of grief and how it comes in slowly and the pain does not go away, and it goes away for a while and it comes back. It's like a biorhythm chart of emotion that goes up and down, like the sine wave of life. We ride a wave. It gets to be a high wave and it's a low wave. You know, when you're feeling good again, you may come down. The other shoe may drop and we'll feel bad again. But we get used to that and we understand it and we get to learn that this is our lives. But by recognizing it and proactively grieving, we can truncate sometimes the intense pain by involvement in our journey. Proactive grieving, though, is not going through the stages. It's like walking up a stairway. You know, each step taking one at a time, on your time. You can get up in the morning, you wake up sometimes in the morning and you go, oh my gosh, it's like Groundhog Day all over again. It's if you wake up and it's the same day, my child is dead, my sibling is dead, my grandchild is dead, my brother, my sister, uncle. There's so many losses that go about our life. And then we wake up in the morning after a fitful night's sleep or even a good night's sleep. We wake up and it's the first thought in the morning. And we don't know when down the road we get to the coffee pot before we realize, oh my gosh, they're dead. And it colors our whole day again. And that can take years and years of processing that initial response in the morning, and it slowly can change through the years through proactive grieving and what you do in your grief. And how you reach out to others is a very important part of the grief, and we'll go through that a little bit later through this webinar. I'd like to illustrate, I came up with a new a modality, let's say, for grieving. Because in the past, you may have heard of the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross stages of grieving. It was acronym DABDA: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And Elizabeth was the renowned griefologist, or whatever she was the best person to turn to and the best books. And the only thing that I had 27 years ago when my son died, and I would look at these stages and try to figure out where I fit in. And I found myself being frustrated. And then working with the Compassionate Friends and Bereaved Parents USA and CAPS and SOS and so many other grief groups, and seeing the faces and the frustration in people saying, well, I'm not in the anger stage, or I never had the anger stage, or I'm stuck in the anger stage. So talking to many other professionals and non-professionals about their journey, feeling the same kind of frustration with this, the 5 stages that were used carte blanche. And even Elizabeth Kubler-Ross said these stages were meant for those of the dying and not the grief-stricken. But they were applied, pretty much carte blanche to the grief journey, that we go through those stages. So I came up with a modality in working through the bereaved families that I think is more user-friendly, really illustrates the journey, that it is a lifelong journey, and we can go up and down a stairwell, up and down. We can skip a step. We can go to the top step. We can come back down. One day we may be at the top step, and the next morning we're at the bottom step. And that's okay. Every journey is so unique. The time so unique to everybody, and how long it takes, and how long we stay in one step. So I call them steps because we're ascending a staircase. If you notice in grief that, we feel this huge weight on our shoulders. And this grief is heavy. It's a physical, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the physical side as we move through this webinar, but it's so physical. It affects us physically in so many ways that we don't even know. But we wonder why we get to the top of the stairs and we're so tired. Because we are tired. Our body is grieving as well. So that's why I use the stairwell, because we can identify with it, not only physically and mentally and emotionally. It just makes sense. So we'll go through these one at a time, because it's an acronym, STAIRS, stairs. The first one is shock. That is an autonomic physical reaction that we have when we experience a loss in our life. When the soldiers come up to the door and knock, when we get the telephone call, when we're called to the hospital, when we're in our own home and our loved one dies, that we go into shock. This cannot be real. This cannot be happening. Our mind goes into shock and our body goes into shock. Our body is flooded with hormones that protect us and allow us to do the impossible. We don't know what we're doing, but we function at an autonomic, perfunctory level to get things done. We have to pick out flower arrangements, the casket, plan the funeral, plan the wake. It's like people are planning a party in our loved one's honor, and we're coordinating that event. And the only way we can do that is because we are in physical and emotional shock. And that shock can last from days to weeks to months, but we're still in that very numb shock. And as Dorothy Sims used to say, that we slowly, like we're frozen, and we slowly thaw out. And then the reality creeps in. And that's when we move from shock to the trauma. When we enter the trauma, then the reality it almost becomes overbearing. The shock has worn off. The casseroles have stopped coming. The cards have stopped coming. People are not saying our loved ones, our child's name, our sibling's name anymore to protect us. But we crave to hear that music to our ears. So we're really caught in this area of a cocoon of healing. And that's where we're in the trauma. And it's rough. It's a very hard time. And I've seen people in trauma for 10 years. I've seen people in trauma for months. It changes with every individual, and the circumstances of the death, the relationship that we have with a loved one can all affect the journey. In trauma, I compare it to when there was the earthquake in Japan. And the earthquake is what took the child from our family. But what follows the earthquake? The tsunami. That's what takes our life away. That's what puts us into a whole new survival mode. Everything we know has been wiped out. All our future plans, all our hopes, our dreams, everything is crushed. It's like our home was wiped out, and our family is our home. And we can rebuild and live in the rubble. We can function at an autonomic level. We can survive. But we can do more than that. We can thrive eventually. We can rebuild our lives. And that's the important part, knowing that we can. We can stay in trauma as long as we need to. There's no timetable. It's individual for each one of us. But it is so critical to move from that second step on the stairwell from trauma to the next step, which is acceptance. And as you see the pictures before you, you can see many things that interfere with our acceptance. And I know the word acceptance is harsh for many people. And some people will say, I will never accept the death of my child. That means I agree with it. And we're not talking about accepting the death. We're not talking about agreeing with the circumstances of their death. We're talking about the acceptance of the challenge to survive. As the president accepts the presidency, he accepts the challenge of the presidency. He doesn't agree with all the politics, but he accepts the challenge to make a difference. And that's what we can do in our life. We can make a difference in our life, and more importantly, we can make a difference in other people's lives by the way we process our loss, and to let them know that we are still grieving, to bring them in and not have negative feelings for those that don't understand us or those people that say stupid things. Look at the heart intent. What are they trying to say to us? They want to help us. They don't want to hurt us. But people are ignorant of the journey. God help them that they would ever really know what we feel if they have lost a child in their life. But not only is our call to help educate them as well as help ourselves in our bereavement. As you can see in these pictures here, up in the upper left, that man is partially naked and he's holding one eye, and he's fearful of going forward, fearful of more loss in his life, fearful of what is the next day going to bring, fearful if I'm going to feel this way every single day. Will I ever feel joy again? Then we have the picture on the lower left of the man who's in anger. There may be many reasons for anger and the child has died in your life. There's many cases where the anger is very valid, that someone has murdered or a drunk driver or whatever reason, or you're mad at your own child for whatever reason that may have contributed to their death. So anger is a very real issue. So we identify it. We know it's part of the emotions of grief. And everybody, not everybody has it, but some people do. Every journey is so different. Or we can go to the upper right picture and we look at the apathy. And we can be in apathy and probably the worst emotion in grief, and we just don't care. And that's hard on ourselves, and it's hard on everybody around us when we just don't care. We just don't care. And we just want to sit and just hope everything goes away. But life doesn't. And we deserve joy in our life. And being in apathy, we'll never feel joy again. So we move from apathy, and that is a hindrance to acceptance. In the lower one, we have that little girl looks like it's peeking out from a blanket, and we can isolate ourselves. So clinically, agoraphobia, where we do not want to socialize or interrelate with other human beings. It's easier just to stay under the blankets. And that's okay. It's okay for a few days. It's okay for a week. Just not to get out of your jammies and just be on the couch and just rest and recharge yourself. But when it becomes too long, it can lead to depression. And depression after a couple of weeks, it's not a good thing. After a couple of weeks, maybe need to go see a counselor or see a doctor There's ways to get through the depression. But grief depression and clinical depression are different animals. Grief depression can come and go and come and go. Clinical depression is persistent and lasts. And so if you're finding yourself in a depressive state for a persistent time, it's time to seek some help, possibly. Or you can help yourself in many ways, holistically, or through your own means of trying to find something that'll bring you some happiness and joy, even though it is difficult. And the big one in the middle is denial, and that's where we can put the face up, and when people ask us, how are you doing, and what do we say? We're fine. We put that mask up, and that's okay. That's okay. We have to go to work. We got to function. We have bills to pay. We have responsibilities. So we can use that face and put it on. But we need to take that face off and with people that understand, and to let people know that we are still grieving. We're not fine. We don't want to go there, that's fine. If we do want to go there, we can take the mask off. We can be somewhat fickle in our grief. It's our grief, and we can do what we need to do with our grief to make it through, to make it go forward. Incrementally, we can go forward a day at a time, a minute at a time. Sometimes grief is like Groundhog Day, the movie, where you wake up and it's the same day all over again, another day of pain and grief. But some days you'll wake up and there'll be a little bit of light, and that's all we need is that little bit of light to get us to move forward. So now once we have accepted the loss, that we have accepted the challenge to survive, that if this is a part of our life, there is no going back. We cannot change the circumstances surrounding their death. We can't change the circumstances of the physical void that we have in our lives. But we can use the insight and the introspection and look within ourselves and find gifts and strengths that we never realized that we had. And we can look for insights on our loved ones, that maybe there are ways that we can communicate with them. Maybe that we can still speak to them. We can talk to them like they're still here. We can still use the present tense. They are part of our lives forever. So we look at ways that we can go through this journey and listening to other people's help as well, but truly looking inside in that quiet time that we can find ourselves in prayer or meditation, whatever works for you. But just listen to that still voice within and giving us guidance on where we go from here. And once we have found those gifts and talents that we have, we can start to rebuild our life. As in the metaphor about the earthquake and the tsunami. We can rebuild our life after the tsunami. We can reinvest in our life and truly have a renaissance. I've experienced personally a renaissance in my life. It's been 27 years since my son has died, but I've seen the renaissance in becoming, I'm a much better person, and I reach out to much more people, and I live every day as a new day, how to serve others and how to find joy again in honor of my son's life. And we can do that by turning loss to legacy. And that's what this webinar is about, is how do we proceed? How do we go forward to turn our loss to legacy? Well, to do that, once we start rebuilding, when we start finding joy again and we can laugh again, we feel that we get a recognition, not only in our mental state, but we will physically feel it when we feel joy. It's impossible not to feel joy when our body is feeling joy. When we reach the last step, the S on the S-T-A-I-R-S, the stairs, when we reach serenity, we can possibly find peace. An acknowledgement of this is our life now. As Alan Peterson's song said, this is my life. We didn't choose this life, but it is our life. And we can use every strength, every iota of our being as a legacy to our loved one. That's what brings us back. That's what makes us a full human being again. Because we're going to have a huge void for a long, long time. But we can fill that void with a love for our loved one and build and build and build. Finding peace is not going through grief. Finding peace is going through the grief, not around it. We can find many ways around it. It's too painful. We want to go around it. I mean, we don't want to go there. And we can self-medicate. We can do many things to go around it, but we need to eventually process the full reality of the loss. We adapt it to our lives, and we build a new future as a legacy to them. Who else can talk about our child, our loved one, our sibling better than we can? We become their arms, their hands, their voice. We become their life in this world. They should have been a legacy for us, but we are a legacy for them. But they can help us do that, and together it is synergistic. With the love that we still have for them and the love they still have for us, that synergy together can create so many powerful things. And that's what you're seeing in the grief world today. People are turning their loss to legacy and changing the world. And the Compassionate Friends is on the crest of that wave of changing the way America thinks and the world thinks and how we process our loss. And we truly are turning loss to legacy. And how do we do that? Where do I start? You look at this picture, the confusion. We are confused. There's so many things in life happening, and we want to go back, and we can't, and we hurt, and we get so confused. And we have physical confusion. When we're in grief, the thinking part of our brain, the frontal cortex, is taken over by the amygdala, the primal brain that handles our stress and our grief. And so when we forget things, and we have CRS, can't remember stuff, it is physical. And so we are confused. And so it takes work. Write things down. Make notes. Keep notes of your journey. It helps us go forward. First of all, we have to make the decision to accept the challenge to survive. When we get on the A, when we're in the acceptance part of the stairs, and we accept the journey to become a survivor. In accepting the challenge, we then can look at it at ourselves, and we say, where do we go from here? We identify what we can't do. We identify what we can do. We identify the support system that we have or don't have. We identify any goals that we wanted to do. Research, bring old goals back into play. This is what I always wanted to do. Well, now is the time to take the strength to do it and do it on our loved one. We can do almost anything with the love that we have for our child. It can take us to places we never dreamed of. So create a plan. Accept help. When people have told us, oh, is there anything I could do? Call them. There's no time limit on love. Accept the help. You know how much better you feel? I know I feel better when I'm helping someone. So we have to give other people the opportunity to feel that too, to help us. We'll make them feel better, to make them feel good about themselves. So there's no shame in asking for help. It's difficult to reach out and ask for help. And you're going to find friends, deeper relationships than you've maybe ever had in your life when you reach out to people and ask for help, because they want to be there for us. They want to see our smile. So seek tools for the journey. It's your journey, and there are many tools available in many different areas of your life, in many different bereavement groups. And the Compassionate Friends website has so much information to help you find tools for your journey. Actively grieve and lament. We talked about the different terms in grief and loss and bereavement. Grieving is that intense pain in our brain and our body that we grieve so hard. Lamenting is expressing that pain. Lamenting is mourning. It is bringing it out. It is writing. It is doing artwork. It's expressing your pain. It's telling your story. Tell your story to everybody you can. If you can't tell it to friends, tell it to the people on the bus. Tell it to somebody who will listen. If they cry, it'll make you cry. You can't make us cry. Well, the tears are there, but they need to come out. In telling our story, sometimes we let that out, and it feels so good following that. When we let it out, when we talk the story, we not only tell the story of their death, but we finally weave in stories of their life, the good times, the fun times, and we tell their whole story, not just the death story. So that is sharing your continued struggle with others. Whoever will listen. Some people may get tired of listening of it, but we don't let up. I'm sorry, I don't let up. If people are uncomfortable with it, they'll walk away. If they're not uncomfortable with it, they will stay and they will listen, and you can tell by their eyes that they are engaged. So tell people, share your struggle. Helping others who are hurting in their journey. It's paramount, I believe, on the grief journey to help others. Doing things that assist them not only in their grief journey or just assisting people in general. Helping people will help you. And most importantly, keeping your loved one present in our today. Use the present tense. We have been so programmed. As I was 27 years ago and my son died, I said, oh, I had a son named Kelly, and he died, and I have a living child, Megan. You know, and I've changed that. I say, I have a son named Kelly. I didn't. It's not past tense anymore. His name is Kelly. It wasn't Kelly. It is Kelly. I have 2 children, Kelly and Megan. Kelly's in heaven. My daughter is giving me 2 grandchildren. I talk about them equally all the time. I don't put Kelly in the past tense. If you've never done that, please, it is so empowering. Just say it. Seek joy. Joy is our birthright, our God-given right. Whatever your religious belief is, I believe we deserve joy. It is with chemical. Our body has the chemicals that make us feel joy. And then when it comes, sometimes we try to stifle it, and that we don't deserve the joy, or that how can I be happy when my child is dead? And those are feelings that we acknowledge. But not only, they want us to feel joy again. They want us to reach out and be ourselves and fulfill our life's journey. They have fulfilled their life's journey in a certain way, and we have to fulfill our life journey in that same way, and to live a life full. So rebuild. Get involved in your journey. Be a part of your journey. If you don't know what to do, ask for help. Go to a Compassionate Friends meeting. The monthly meetings are so important for so many people. Sometimes it's hard to go to a meeting. I got things to do. I don't feel like going tonight. But we are pack animals. We are herd animals. We need each other. And if you find it hard to go to a meeting, you will not regret it once you walk in that door. You'll feel the camaraderie at not only an emotional level, but a physical level. Being in the room with people that care and people that have also suffered loss, we feel that camaraderie from the start, and we help each other just by being present with each other. You can go to a meeting and not say a word, and you will walk away feeling better just from being in that presence, in that very healing space. Talk about, there's different parts of the journey. I call this integrating those parts into our journey. I look at our body, our human quality, as being 4 separate components: the physical, the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and we recognize those, and we try to integrate the different aspects of those journey into our grief. So I'll start with the somatic integration. That's rebuilding the body. You know, our body is grieving. There's so much evidence, physical evidence out there that our body grieves at a hormonal level, at a stress level, that is really taking over the grief philosophies of today, that grief is so physical, and we recognize that sometimes we can't do anything about it, but how we handle it, what we do with our life physically, we can affect our emotional level as well. So if by increasing movement of any kind, just to keep moving, there's a tendency to, just to stay on the couch and not move. And we find ourselves sad and we're staring out the window for 3 minutes or 3 or 4 hours, and we don't even know time just moved, like time has stopped. But we find ourselves sedentary a lot because we're sad and we are tired all the time. So it's important to keep movement. Just go for a walk around the house, go up and down the stairs. If you can physically do it, move. Get the lymphatic system moving. It only moves by physical action. It doesn't pump on its own, but it removes the products of stress that build up in our system. When we cry, we relieve a lot of the stress hormones that have built up into our system. So that the components of tears are hugely hormonal, all from the stress response. Same with sweating. If we jog, do something physical to sweat, and that helps release some of those products of the hormones from the stress that we're undergoing during grief. And then to help that, proactively, we increase with diet with fresh fruits and lots of water and vegetables and tons of water. We forget sometimes to eat good, and we forget to drink. We just forget, and that's where our mind operates in grief. So we have to keep water bottles around everywhere is what I did. I just keep a bottle in my car, keep one in the bedroom, just drink lots of water and flush our system to help the physical aspect of the grief. Because when you start to physically feel better, you will emotionally feel better. So are you doing anything that can really inhibit the journey? We need to process our loss, and we use drugs and stimulants that sometimes interfere. It can be a stopgap to not feel the pain, but it'll eventually wear off, and we need to eventually face it full on and process the grief. But in that process, we can find physical ways to help us. Get a massage, hot tub, sauna, anything that makes our body feel good will also help us feel good. And to keep moving again, well, swim, run, jog, do anything that keeps the body moving. And it's okay to cry often. Let it out. Don't hold it back. If we stuff our grief, it hurts us physically. And it's a circle of events. We just go round and round and round. If we stuff the grief, we feel horrible. If we don't process it, we feel horrible. The body feels horrible. And so if we can help with the body or help with the emotion, they all help each other. And to sing and to dance, to whistle, to hum, to tell jokes, to let that body feel those hormones of joy again, to let us know that we can get there someday. And of course, we may feel guilty for feeling joy. We may feel guilty for finding ourselves whistling one day. Why am I whistling? Whistling is a sign of joy, and it helps us when we whistle, when we dance, when we hum, when we hug each other. They say we need 40 hugs a day. So if you're not a hugger, then you can hug yourself. The body doesn't know the difference. It's better to have someone hug you. I love hugging people. But you can hug yourself. Give yourself a warm embrace. If you're not an outward hugger, just take care of yourself. Spiritual integration. That's when we rebuild our faith. Our faith is truly tested when we have lost a child in our lives. And no matter what relationship, if you're an aunt and you're an uncle, you're a best friend, you're a grandma, grandpa, sibling, parent, it changes everything in the views that we have about life in general. And that may include our faith, our religion, or lack of religion. So we assess our faith. And what worked before may not work now. We may find a whole new church that works, that for us. Or we may become more faith-filled than we've ever been in our lives. Different for everybody. But faith is an important part of the journey. I just say I have faith that I will see my son again. That is my faith that gets me through every day, that I will see him again. And I get signs from him, and I know on a personal level that he has survived death on some level. That gets me through, and that's my faith. And that's a personal belief, and signs is another whole workshop, and we'll probably do that at another webinar someday. But helping others, volunteering, and again, I talked about that helping others is so important. But finding that meditation, that quiet time, is so important. I have a 4 o'clock bench that I built this bench up in my backyard. That when I would come home from my work, heavy day at work, and I needed to sit and just think about my life. Ending work, thinking about Kelly. I think about him every day. But finding that quiet time, I can find a special time to be with him and be with my wife and my family in the evening and not carry my day my rough day or my work day with me, to be able to separate. I sit on that 4 o'clock bench, and that's where I meditate. That's where I have 20 minutes a day and just be still. So find a time in your day to be still, to let the world go by, and just sit and be still and feel that feeling that you get. It's a wonderful thing. Our body helps us do that when we allow it to. And praying an intention, whatever your religious beliefs are, when you pray to God or you set an intention for your own higher power, these intentions work. Praying works. It helps you get through. It works for you. No matter what, it works for you. You can feel it. So try it. Try things that help you feel that feeling of the quietness that you can attain. And if just taking a walk in the woods, if that's what it is, people go hunting and walk through the woods. You don't have to sit at a 4 o'clock bench. You can go walking through the woods. You can feel around nature. You can sit down at the ocean. Being near the ocean is hugely cathartic for the soul. You feel the ocean, the pounding of the surf, and it automatically makes you feel better emotionally and physically. And expressing gratefulness. Say if you wake up grateful every morning, it's hard to experience unhappiness. It may seem impossible in the early years, but it is being grateful for another day. Being grateful for another day to say my child's name. Being grateful for another day to help other people on their journey. Being grateful that I'm just looking at a sunrise that is so beautiful. Even though we have experienced a devastating loss, we can still be grateful for what we have. And be grateful for what the experiences that we did have. And be grateful for the future that is in store. So paying it forward and living compassion is so important. Do something for someone else with no thought of anything in return. That paying forward movie is wonderful. Do a surprise thing for somebody. Send cards to people who've lost somebody on their birthday, on their anniversary day. For months, for years. I still get flowers from a dear friend of ours. After 27 years, she still sends flowers on Kelly's death day, December 1st. It just, we anticipate it, and it just feels so good that people do remember. And there are many people out there that do remember. We just don't always hear from them, but they may be thinking about us all the time. Emotional integration, that's rebuilding our soul. There's a wonderful poem by Shel Silverstein, and he's written a lot of books for children. And I love this little excerpt from the poem that he wrote. All the woulda, coulda, shouldas lying in the sun, talking about the things they woulda, coulda, shoulda done. But those woulda, coulda, shouldas all ran and hid from one little did. So it's what you do. We can express those woulda, shoulda, couldas, and we will. We'll talk about them. When we express them, it's good to express them to someone else, to get it out, to verbalize it, or to put it in writing, to put it three-dimensionally on paper, so it's not torturing our brain that we coulda, shoulda, woulda done this. We have no idea that our loved one's going to die. We may have in long-term illness, but that doesn't compare. You're always going to have shoulda, woulda, coulda. That I should have done this more, should have seen a different doctor, or whatever. It's a normal and natural part of the grieving process. But let them in and let them out. Work on forgiveness to yourself and others. And that's another whole workshop in forgiveness, too. It's very difficult for sometimes. Sometimes there's some things that are very hard to forgive. But it's something we need to work on to forgive. Let us off the hook. Because otherwise, 2 lives are wasted when we live in the anxiety of not forgiving somebody. Keep a journal. It's hard. We have, like I talked about before, with the cerebral function, that it's hard to remember things. So write things down. Track the good days. Track the bad days. Track the wonderful things you've done. Track the wonderful things that people have done for you. And keep a journal. And you can see where you've been and where you're going. It will help you in the future. See a life coach. Go to a counselor. Go to a group therapist. Go to a grief group. Do anything you can to help you. There's many avenues of help. As you see on the Compassionate Friends website, there's a plethora of information to get you where you need to go. And it's all different for everybody. So take your choice. There's many things you can do to help yourself. Go back to school. Take a class. Keep the brain stimulated. And just be honest with people. When people ask how you're feeling, you tell them how you're feeling. A lot of people don't want to hear the answer, and you'll shock them, but some people really do want to hear the answer. And you can tell, tell them. If they're asking, how are you doing, tell them how you're feeling. Be honest with yourself. Nurture your own self-worth. Do what you like to do. Sometimes we punish ourselves for wanting to do, well, I shouldn't do the things I like to do. I'll feel joy. But do the things you like to do, and the joy will come. Do it in honor of your loved one, and you will feel better. I promise you that. And nurture that pride of survivorship. Otherwise, 2 lives are wasted. If we're not a survivor, then we become a casualty, and we're collateral damage. Creating a legacy. There's many different ways. I wrote my book. I wrote letters to my son. And the only way I could have written that book is that my wife and I both kept journals. We kept journals of, well, we learned through it in the process of our son dying of cancer. It was 18 months. So we had the advantage of knowing how to journal because we kept track of the doctor appointments, how we were feeling emotionally, and so many things, the good days, the bad days, and it became a lifestyle to create a journal. So it's important in the grieving process that we continue that on and kept our journals up to know how we're feeling. And then we can see that, oh, my God, 2 months ago I had a good day. And, what was it? What gave me the good day? To remind yourself there are ways that we can have a good day. Create a work of art, doing anything creative. As Alan found in his legacy for Ashley, writing music. Alan Peterson, I mean, he's one of those beautiful songwriters on grief in this country. And now he's the executive director of the Compassionate Friends because he turned his loss to legacy that way. By creating from the heart, creating from art, doing something special for people, for other people. But it came from his own healing, from his own cathartic ways of helping himself heal was to put his grief three-dimensional, let it out of his heart and onto paper. Put your heart into art. Anyway, you can draw stickmen, you can make a collage, you can do anything. It's the act of doing it, it's letting it out and putting it out on paper, which is so important. It doesn't have to be something you're going to sell at an art show. Art is your own creativity, and everybody can be creative. Start a support group. Be a part of the Compassionate Friends. Become a group leader. Become a facilitator. Be a chapter leader. There's many ways with Compassionate Friends to be able to assist others and support yourself at the same time. Many people have started foundations. Like Ann Castaldo, she's with Compassionate Friends, also started the Tony Brown Foundation. Bobby Rosaniti started the Healing Hearts Foundation in Florida. Many different ways you can turn your loss to legacy by starting a foundation. Not everybody can start a foundation. Not everybody has the wherewithal to do that. So you can give blood. Just go out and give blood. I've given now 37 gallons of blood in honor of my son. That's one thing I knew I could do, and I have good blood, and not everybody can give blood physically, but you can give in many other ways. So give your time. When people say time heals all things, there's only one way when time heals all things, when you give it away. When you give time away to others or give time away for yourself, that's you're doing it right. That's when it helps to heal. Reach out to others, anybody hurting. Open doors, people, physically or metaphorically. Give people parking spots. Express road love instead of road rage. Let others know that it's a ripple effect. When you help others, they help others, and it's just a win-win for everybody. There's many ways to do a walk or a golf tournament. Many different things you can do with a fundraiser to help Compassionate Friends or to help a local chapter or to help a cancer awareness group or whatever works for you to help others and doing it and naming your child. And it's so good to see maybe 10 years later that you'll see a banner in town with your child's name on it. Keeps them alive. Open doors. Use your gifts. We all have gifts. When you're on the stairs, and I talked about the introspection side, we can find those gifts. So creating a legacy. Oh, I'm sorry. Be intentional. Be proactive. Be proactive. Make intentions. This is where I want to be next week, want to be next month. Write it down. Do a bucket list. Do things that will help others and help yourselves. Grief is hugely transformational. The power in grief is immense. It has the power to destroy us, to make us sicker than we've ever been, because it affects our immune system. Or we can process it proactively, and we can become bigger and better than we've ever been. We cannot change the circumstances of our loved one leaving us physically in our life, but we can transform our lives from the power of that loss. It is amazing. I've seen so many people through the 12 years of working in the Compassionate Friends and other grief organizations to see the powerful things that people have done in the legacy of their loved one. Not only can we survive after significant loss in our life, we can thrive. Surviving is just the beginning. But once we've learned to survive and realize we can survive, if you go to a Compassionate Friends group, that is proof that you want to survive. Just believe you can. We learn to become an intentional survivor and not a collateral victim. Tears are shed when we are born, and they usher us out when we die. The meaning of life is the dance in between. And as Leanne Womack said in that wonderful song, if you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. You can sit out as long as you need to, but eventually we want to dance our child's life and dance it in the future, and that's what will bring joy back into our lives. If you want any more information about proactive grieving or turning loss to legacy, please go to www.heartlightstudios.com. That is my website. Or email me directly at heartlightstudios@gmail.com. We walk this road together. I want to thank Alan Peterson and the Compassionate Friends. They have become the deepest part and most important part of my life. So please, if you have not been to the Compassionate Friends, please check them out. Go to a national conference if you can. God bless you all. Thank you so much.